All right, Caleb. Thanks for doing this, man. I mostly wanted to talk to you just because I came across I mean, we've been following each other on Instagram, but your Instagram said fat kid turned distance runner. So immediately that struck me as interesting, and I'm guessing there's an interesting story in there. But if you don't mind, just give us an intro. Tell us who you are, man.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you having me on. It's awesome. So my name's Caleb Sherrill. I live in North Alabama around the Huntsville area. Currently, I work for Huntsville Hospital. I'm kind of in the middle of a career change, so that's something's coming on. But as far as running goes, I'm a distance runner and I'm a athlete for rods racing with orphans, racing for orphans with Down syndrome, and that's something that I got involved with about 6 months ago. And that's kind of been my biggest running motivation for the last little while.
Nice. Tell us about that organization. RODS is what does it stand for again? I'm sorry.
It's racing for orphans with Down syndrome.
Okay. Okay.
So RODS is an organization that it partners with a couple others, but essentially we're a group of athletes, mostly distance runners, that we all kind of pick a child to represent. And like my child Scotty, on all my races training, I wear a picture of him attached to my hydration vest. But our overall goal is to raise awareness and funds for the fact that there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of children out there with Down syndrome that are in the foster and adoption system that, and not so much in the US, but in other countries, if they're not adopted by the time they're 16 to 18, most time they're either put in a mental institution or just put out on the street.
Mm.
So Michael McKnight is our executive director, and he's kind of revamped the organization over the last year. He's brought on some new athletes, made some changes and everything, but man, it's a great organization to be in, and being able to pick a child and try to help them find a forever family, because that's something I'm a firm believer in. Every child deserves a chance to have a loving family and home.
Yeah. Well, 100%, man. And I can certainly appreciate that. How did you get involved with these guys?
So really, it all started with Instagram. Following Mike. He hates when people say it, but he's the goat of 200s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Triple Crown of 200s multiple times, Colorado Trail fastest known time, and a lot of other stuff. But following him, I started seeing the pictures pop up on his hydration pack of a little boy, and his child is Brody that he sponsors.
Okay.
But just seeing that, and then Hector Rodriguez got involved in the organization, so I started seeing that, and then I started meshing with Hector some about the wolf pack and all that, and eventually it just led to me, once I decided that I was going to be racing about every month, that that was something that I wanted to try to be a part of.
Okay, cool. And so are you raising money or like, how does it work? Like, do people donate to you, or do you have a certain place people can donate towards?
Yeah, man. So we just recently revamped the site, and my new fundraiser link should be coming out in the next day or so. But that will be attached in my Instagram bio, and then you can actually go to www.rodsheroes.com, or it might be .org. I'll double check on that, but you can go there, and you can go to the full detail. If you can find an athlete, I mean, I think there's around 50 of us that are active right now. So it doesn't have to be me. You don't even have to donate towards a certain athlete. You can just donate to the organization through their website. But I'll have a new fundraiser link coming out in the next day or so, with a goal to raise right around $5,000 over the next year. I'm going to set the goal cutoff at I'm going to do it around the second week of January, because that will be right around the end of my current racing schedule I have throughout the rest of the year.
Yep.
So, I try to post as much as I can throughout the year about my fundraiser, and, keep it up, show my training, show that we're getting with it. And I donate monthly amounts to it as well, just because I'm a firm believer in, if you're going to speak for something, you need to back it up too.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Well, cool, man. I'll check it out. And if you get that link soon, send it to me and I'll put it in the show notes as well so that people can donate or, people can just check it out. I mean, it sounds interesting. And I've had both Mike McKnight and Hector on the show. They're both, yeah, total studs, obviously. And yeah, I'd love to support whatever you guys are running for because it's a great cause. So how did this all start for you, Caleb? Did you grow up in Alabama? Like I said, your Instagram says you started out a fat kid, and that's your words, not mine. But yeah, man, I want to hear the story.
Yeah, man. So I'm born and raised in Athens, Alabama, where it's a little small town in North Alabama, right in between Huntsville and Florence. Those are the two biggest cities near us. But pretty much, I grew up, little town, little high school. So went to the same school, K through 12. My biggest thing, I played baseball all my life. Started playing whenever I was 4 and played into my freshman year of college. But yeah, I was always the fat kid turned distance runner is kind of my play on it because going into my senior year of high school, I weighed almost 300 pounds. So over the course of that time, I've lost right around 150 pounds altogether. But growing up, I don't want to say I had a bad childhood or anything like that. I had a great home, great loving family. But one thing that I've always struggled with is mental illness as far as depression, anxiety goes. It's something that it's ran in my family for a long time. My grandparents have been affected by it. My parents are affected by it. So, eating just kind of turned into, I guess, my escape for that. It was never really drugs or alcohol or anything like that, but I was just, I was an emotional eater. I had no idea of what a portion size was. I would just eat and eat and eat. And even with playing baseball pretty much year round and everything else, I never really dropped any weight. I just steadily kept getting bigger, and it finally hit a catalyst right at the start of my senior year where I weighed almost 300 pounds.
Wow. Senior year of high school, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify. Yeah, man. I mean, that's a big high schooler for sure. And you mentioned anxiety and depression. So I'm guessing you struggle with both of them, anxiety and depression. And you said it's running your family. Yeah, for sure. And eating kind of became your coping mechanism. Rather, some people choose drugs and alcohol. Some people choose gambling, and eating just happened to be your thing. It sounds like all the way up into your senior year in high school. And I'm just curious if you could paint us a picture, when you were in the throes, the deepest, darkest place of your senior year in high school, and you're just eating whatever, whenever, what did that look like?
So a little bit of backstory, whenever I was 14, my grandfather had a bad car accident and he ended up passing away from his injuries. But I was actually supposed to be working with him the day that he had the wreck, and I had overslept that morning. So right around that time was whenever everything started to get really rough for me, because as a 14-year-old, in my mind, it just went straight to, well, if I would have been with him, then maybe I could have stopped it. Maybe I could have let him see what was coming, all that stuff. So for a few years, I really blamed myself for it. But it hit a breaking point around the summer of 2012. I was in the middle of, going into my senior year of high school, the complete unknown. And like I said, I played baseball year round, so I'm in the middle of probably the most competitive years of baseball I ever played on some of these teams. But it finally hit a point to where I basically just said, I can't take it anymore. I'm not doing this. I'm tired of waking up feeling like this every day. And I ended up trying to take my own life that summer. I took a handful of pills, and I guess the weight is my saving grace, because with the amount I took, I probably shouldn't have woke up the next morning, but somehow I did. And after that, it was kind of just a thing of, well, I tried, I'm still here. So now I got to figure out how to move forward.
Wow. You said that was 2012?
It was.
Okay. And where were you in high school at that time?
It was the summer going into my senior year.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. And so would you say that was kind of a rock bottom moment for you? Was that the lowest of the low?
Yeah, that was probably definitely the lowest of the low.
For sure. For sure. And so like, there you are, like with your life in your hands, like wondering if you should go on. And I'm just trying to figure this out. So you were overweight and you said you didn't want to feel like this every day. Like what exactly were you feeling? Like what led you to this point where you're really thinking about taking your life? Was it just the weight, or was there more going on?
It was a lot more than just the weight. It was still trying to, figure out how to go on without my granddad. That was something that probably honestly took me close to 6 to 7 years to truly accept. He was my best friend, my biggest role model. I saw him every single day from the time I was 4 years old until he passed away. He lived next door. So that was just something that took me a really long time. And, just my grades in high school weren't good. It wasn't that I wasn't smart. Honestly, I didn't try. I didn't care. Yeah, I think it was just there was a lot of stress-driven anxiety and depression from, I don't want to say all from losing him, but not knowing how to deal with that loss and trying to hold it all in and keep everyone on the outside, not let anyone know that I was struggling or anything like that. That was something that I did probably until I was close to 23 or 24 was, I held everything in. I didn't talk about my feelings or my problems with anyone. I didn't show any emotion. I just went on throughout the day pretending like everything was fine. And I guess that's whenever I say I didn't want to wake up feeling that way anymore. It was that I was tired of just going through those motions of putting on a fake smile and a fake laugh and, being the friend that everybody knew. And I was just ready to, quit putting on that act and just be done with that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate, man. I can totally relate. I've had those feelings. I've been in that place, and yeah, it's definitely a rough place to be in. So you take a handful of pills. I'm guessing that leads you to the hospital. I'm guessing that leads you to a few days stay in the hospital. And then I don't know, I'm guessing therapy, medication. I mean, how did you sort of work your way out of this downward spiral that you were in?
So that's the kind of weird thing about it is, no one except me knew about it. So kind of whenever I woke up the next day, I just kind of went on like it never happened for the next little while. I took probably 12 hydrocodone.
Oh.
And it's like, I still to this day, I don't know how or why I woke up the next day, but
Sure.
I kind of, that was something I kept to myself. And I don't think I ever told another person until maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And, my parents knew that night that the pills went missing, but I don't think even to this day, we've never talked about it really. So obviously I got in trouble with them because they thought, I was just taking the pills for whatever, but when in reality I was trying to take my own life. But, I woke up the next day and probably for the next week, I didn't think about it. And then it hit me about 2 weeks after that, oh shit, like, I'm still here and I have to I can't just act like this didn't happen. So at that point, I went back and I got on antidepressants for a little while. And I was on and off of those for probably 3 years. And I hate taking any kind of medication, but those work great for some people. But for me, it put me in such a foggy place that I couldn't, it was almost worse than just feeling everything I was.
Sure.
So at that point, I kind of, whenever I got off of the antidepressants is really whenever my fitness kicked up.
Okay. Okay. And is that mainly how you sort of manage your mental health these days, just with fitness, or do you still do therapy or antidepressants or anything like that? And I'm not knocking any of these things. I've used them all, and I currently use plenty of, these modalities, but like, where are you at now?
So at this point, pretty much running is my mental health therapy. I run 5 to 7 days a week most of the time. I'm running races every month at this point, sometimes a couple a month. I've done one ultra so far. I attempted another one and DNF'd it about 3 weeks ago, so that was a fun experience. But I've got a bunch of races coming up through the summer, and that keeps me motivated for the training along with the mental health. And then in all reality, the thing that I think more so than the fitness and everything else is, once I came to the realization that I'm not alone, and that there are hundreds of thousands of other people out there that feel exactly the same way I do and that are going through the same things, and that it's okay to be open about it. Once I started opening up and talking more about my mental health and my mental health struggles, I've developed some of the best friendships and friend groups that I don't even deserve. Some of these guys are so awesome. And, it's all from just, that common vulnerability and coming out and talking about it. And, I think the fitness and, just being able to openly sit down and say, hey, I'm struggling this week. I just need you. I need some advice. I need to get some things off my chest, and having people to go talk to.
Mm-hmm. So are these mainly just like friends, or are these like therapy groups, or what are you talking about here?
So most of it's just friends. A lot of people that I've met through social media, like Justin True, Gandhi, and a lot of those guys. Just talking to them, hearing their stories, hearing the things that they've overcome, and just talking about our different and shared experiences, and, just putting myself out there. I post a lot about my own mental health on social media a lot, and, a lot more on its way with that. I've got a couple projects that I can't quite say yet, but I've got some ideas in mind for stuff that I'm working on to get that out there. And, just finding that common ground with people, whether it's, people in your local running community like I have, or, people that are states across like those guys, or whatever it might be, just find that therapy for yourself. And, if you're a religious person, I am. So even whenever I get out on the trail and, I can just talk to myself, talk to God, do whatever, just anything like that, really.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's all beautiful therapy. Just being on the trails and having a conversation with yourself and your higher power, and just appreciating where you are. And I've always said the best therapy is just picking up the phone and calling an old friend you haven't talked to in a long time. Like if my old buddies that already know everything about me can't listen to me blab for a couple minutes and complain or something like that, then maybe they're not really my friends. But no, just picking up the phone and calling an old buddy. Yeah, that's huge therapy. That helps. That makes you smile. And when I'm down, picking up that 1,000-pound phone and calling somebody and asking how their day is, gets me out of my own head. And that stuff is all huge when you have to keep a close eye on your mental health, like I do too, man. So, all right. So you get to a point in your life where, you've made a suicide attempt, you're overweight, you're not happy with the way life is going. So, and you decide you want to make a change. Like, what's inspiring you to make this change and to start losing weight? And what's the first thing you do to start implementing change?
So I guess the first thing I really did was I completely changed my social media. At that point in time, I went and pretty much it on Instagram, I went and unfollowed anything that I viewed as a negative impact on my life, and just went and I followed probably 150 just motivation and self-help groups and stuff like that on there, to where anytime I logged on, all I was seeing was just positivity on my newsfeed.
Yes.
And from then on, I started going back and hanging out with my old friends, spending a lot more time playing baseball, whether it was just hitting the batting cages with a buddy or finding a pickup game to go play in that weekend, whatever it might be. And I made the decision that I had been playing with it on and off most of my life, but I made the decision that I wanted to try to play college baseball. So really at that point, it was right at the start of my senior year of high school that I started working. That was at the point that I was about 300 pounds. That was whenever all this was going on. So I knew if I wanted to make that goal come true, that I was going to have to drop some of the weight, that I was going to have to get in better shape. So I started attempting to run sprints a little bit more. At that time, a sprint for me was, doing about 2 repeats for a quarter mile. And then I was so gassed that I couldn't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But I started hitting the weight room, started doing all that. And eventually I got lucky, and I got the opportunity to sign a scholarship at Huntington College in Montgomery, Alabama. And once I signed with them, they kind of put me on a little bit of a weight program and everything else. And over the course of probably graduating high school to starting with them that fall, I dropped about 25 to 30 pounds. Mm-hmm. So I dropped about 30 pounds in a 4 or 5 month period. Wow. And once I got there, I dropped probably another 10 or so. So I was down to right around 240, 250 at that point. And I wasn't happy there. I didn't really like the way that college baseball was. It was a lot more work than play at that point. So I made the decision to leave there and move back home, and I enlisted in the Alabama National Guard. And in order for me to actually go to basic training, I had to hit the height and weight standard. So being 5'10", I had to either be a max weight of like 185 or pass the tape and weight test, which basically they measure neck, measure around your stomach, and subtract your height. And they have some weird formula for it. But from that period, I dropped another 3 gym sessions a day for probably 3 months straight. And I dropped down to right around 200 in a 2.5 month span.
Wow.
So and at that point, I was able to go to basic training. I passed all that stuff. I went to basic training, and I actually got down right around 170 while I was at basic training.
Wow.
Somewhere around in that area. But due to the amount of weight I had lost, the stress on my body was a little bit too much, and I developed a bunch of stress fractures in my legs. So I ended up having to miss the last phase of a lot of stuff, and I was giving the option to either reclass and start over at day one, or just sign papers and go home. So at that point, I just made the decision to go ahead, take an early separation, and get out. So I left Fort Benning and came back home, and really then was when my hard weight journey started.
Hard weight journey. Okay. It sounds like you'd lost most of the weight, and it sounds like the hard part was over, but you're smiling like it wasn't.
Yeah. So at that point, I was able to lose a lot of weight really quick due to my size, but now it was to the point to where there was a lot of loose skin. I was injured because of how quick I had lost the weight. So I had to figure out how to continue to lose the body fat to get down to the weight and everything that I wanted, which at that point, my goal was right around 160, which is pretty close to what I still sit at now.
Okay.
But I wanted to get down to 160. So I had to figure out how to do that without damaging my health and damaging my body. And that was the hard thing, because it was no longer 3 gym sessions a day, just micro counting calories and what I put in my body. It was more of a figuring out the type of workouts and exercises that I like, that I'm going to be able to mentally withstand doing for the next 6 months, years, whatever it takes. So it was a lot of trial and error. I mean, I would go through spurts to where I would attempt to run sprints, and that would last about 3 weeks. Then I would hop on the rowing machine and row for an hour a day for 3 or 4 months. Then I would just get bored with it altogether. I would quit going to the gym, and then I would gain back 15, 20 pounds, and then be like, I kind of have to check myself and be like, all right, we're not doing this again. So you got to get back at it. And eventually that's what's led me to running, and ultra running, and attempting all this crazy stuff that all my friends think I'm insane for.
Of course, man. That's why I have you on the show, because you're insane like all of us. I love it. Okay. So you were doing a lot of different stuff at the gym to try and stay active and try and keep the weight off, but it doesn't sound like you had like any direction. I'm guessing like probably didn't have a coach or anybody giving you like solid direction. You'd go into the gym, spend an hour on the rower, and that's good for now, but eventually that gets boring. Is that kind of what it looked like?
Oh yeah, man. In the little town where I lived, finding a trainer was hard, and finding a trainer I could afford was nearly impossible.
Yep.
So in my mind, that just was never even an option at the time.
For sure. And then, so you were running sprints from time to time, but it doesn't sound like you were doing like long, slow distances. When did that sort of come into the picture?
I have always hated running. Playing baseball, I hated it with a passion and everything else. And I really got into it about right around a year ago. My first log miles on Strava were March 1st, 2021.
Oh, wow.
But whenever COVID first hit, I work in surgery, so I was furloughed for about 6 weeks, because we were in that state of not knowing what was going to happen, how long this was going to last. The hospital didn't know, if they needed to pull us to other floors, or if it was better to just keep us out in case they needed us, or what the situation was. And so the gym that I work at, or the gym that I work out at, is owned and ran by the hospital. So that closed along with it. So I started just doing kettlebell workouts out in the yard, and I would run sprints in between. And one day I kind of started to figure it up, and I realized that I'd run about 5 miles worth of sprints during my workout. So that led to me kind of thinking, well, if I can do that, then I could probably do one of these 5 or 10K trail races that they do. I was like, I don't really care anything about running on the road, but trail running sounds fun. So I went on, and one of the doctors I work with quite a bit, he's an ultra runner himself. He's done 10 or 12 ultra marathons, probably upwards of 15 actual marathons, and a bunch of other races. But he got talking, he kept hounding me every week about when I was going to sign up for one. So finally I signed up for a summer series that Running Lane Events does here locally on Monsanto. It's 4 races over a course of 3 months during the summer. But once I signed up for those, I decided that I might ought to start to try to train a little bit of distance. And that was kind of what led me to attempting 50Ks and the distances that I'm getting up to now.
Yeah. And okay, so what was your first race? Was it a 5K on the trails, or?
My first race was Smoke Rise Trail Run. It was a 10K, which I ended up running about an extra mile on because I got lost.
Perfect. Okay, welcome to trail running.
I know it.
Okay. How did you feel during and after that run? Were you just like a changed man, or was it just one more step in this evolution, or how were you feeling?
Woke up a little bit nervous that morning, and once I got there, it was probably the coolest day we had in about a month. So weather was great. The trail we were running at was beautiful, and as soon as we started, it was just bliss the entire time. There's there's pictures of me from whenever we get to one of the overlooks that the trail photographer got of me, to where I'm just smiling ear to ear running. And even after, running the extra mile, I crossed the finish line, and it was a great one. They had beer at the finish line, so I went and got a beer and was talking to my girlfriend and my family, and just pure joy. Even with running an extra mile, costing myself probably 15 minutes on my time. Probably cost me. I ended up finishing third my age still, so it probably cost me a first or second spot. But it was just great. And after that, I think I signed up for. In that next week, I probably signed up for 6 more races throughout the next year.
So needless to say, you were hooked in.
Oh yeah, from the very beginning.
Okay. And then what changed from that point on? Did you start running more? Did you start logging weekly mileage? What happened after that?
I did. So whenever I decided to sign up for all these races, I ended up doing it to where every race every month went up in distance. So the first one, my first 2 races were a 10K. Then I did an 8-miler, a 10-miler, a half marathon. And, I kind of just kept going up from there. I skipped the marathon step and went straight to a 50K. But after that, I signed up for a bunch of races. And my original plan was to start 2022 with a 50-miler. But I ended up getting COVID about a month before it. So I dropped down to the 50K. And that was a race that ended up DNFing about a month ago. But yeah, I just, whenever I signed up, it made sure that my races increased in distance. And with that, my training has kind of increased in distance as well.
Totally. Do you mind if I ask what happened with the DNF?
No, it's completely fine. So, more than anything, my mind got the best of me that morning. It was in East Tennessee. It was about 18 degrees with an 8-degree wind chill at the start of the race. We got there a little bit later than planned that morning, had trouble finding exactly where we were supposed to go. Stood in line a little bit to get packets. So by the time we started, I already had ice in my beard, and my girlfriend was actually running the half marathon that day. And it just so happened that we kind of linked up on the trail at a certain part. And at that point in my mind, I said I would, because I was just going to finish with her. So more than anything, I got really cold, and my mind got the best of me. Sure. My body was functioning good despite the COVID. I'm not going to blame anything on that. My lungs hurt, but I logged 45 miles a week before. So, that's no excuse. It was more than anything. My mind just got the best of me.
Yeah. Well, that's a good training week, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You learn a lot about yourself, and every ultra runner has DNFs. And sometimes it's because of performance. Sometimes it's because, mentally, I don't want to be here today, and this race is going to be here next year. I'll come back and get it next year. And it's all part of it, man. Like, we've all been there, and hats off to you, man, because I'm looking at your ultra sign up here, and it looks like you're signed up for a bunch of races. Like, oh my gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5, I think.
Yeah.
It looks like you got, and they're all shorter distances, but those are all great training runs. So, okay, so like looking into the future, do you have like dream races or dream aspirations? Are you trying to build up to something in particular?
Oh yeah, for sure, man. So short term, looking at the rest of the year, they're not on ultra sign up yet, but there's a series here in Huntsville put on by the Huntsville Track Club. It's called the Huntsville Grand Slam, but it starts in November with Dizzy 50s 50K on Monsanto. Then going into December, you run the Rocket City Marathon, which is a road race. It's one of the biggest around here. And then on New Year's Eve, you run Recover from the Holidays 50K, which was my first 50K this year. Okay. And then right around the middle of January is Mountain Mist 50K, which it's one of the first and oldest ultra marathons in the Southeast. But you complete those 4 marathon or greater races in the 3-month period, and you get a nice Huntsville Track Club jacket and everything. But that's my bucket list for the end of this year, and that's what all the shorter distance races are leading up to. But yeah, man, in the long run, obviously anyone that's getting into the ultra distance, I think, we always have the Western states and hard rock and those kind of things in the back of our mind. But a lot of these Arabipa races that they put on just look absolutely awesome. Javelina 100, that's one that is definitely on my bucket list. And going out the Moab for, whether it's the marathon or one of the shorter distance races or, eventually maybe the 240, something like that. Those places like Tahoe and, even Badwater and just all those beautiful places out west are really on my bucket list. I've never been out west, so a lot of places out there, some stuff I'd love to see. Arizona looks beautiful too, so
Yeah.
I'd like to see a lot of that stuff.
Cool. Hell yeah, man. When I was kind of new into ultra running or like a year or two into it, I was obsessed. Like I'd come home and watch. I mean, at that time there was very little online about ultra running, but I'd watch as much as I can online. Are you the same way? Do you feel like you're obsessed right now? This is your thing. This is what's taking up most of the real estate in your mind. Or do you have other stuff going on in your life that takes up all that space in your mind?
No, at this point, it's pretty much all running right now. I'm lucky, and my girlfriend, she's a runner as well, so she gets it, and she's able to chime in, so I don't bore her to death with it. But yeah, man, I mean, go to bed at night. Most time, I'll pull up Carrie Ward or something like that on YouTube, or I'll watch documentaries on people, whether it's Courtney Dauwalter or Killian Jornet, or it just all those people, watch Goggins every now and then, and just feeling everything with running, because it's not only just because at this point I love to talk about it, but you can learn so much just from listening to people with experience.
Yeah, totally. You mentioned that you work in a hospital. What's your job there?
So currently, I am a surgical technologist. I assist doctors during surgery. Mainly, I do orthopedics. I do a lot of breast cancer surgery as well. But yeah, basically, I get the OR ready. Make sure all the instruments are ready. Any implants we might use if it's orthopedics. I assist the doctor during surgery and just that kind of stuff. All the stuff nobody sees because you're asleep.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. And running in your spare time, like, as far as your spare time goes, like how much running are you putting in? Are you doing cross training or anything else, or where are you at these days?
So I try to get around 35 to 45 miles a week right now.
Nice.
I'm lucky, since I work in the hospital, I work 12-hour shifts, and I work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So usually on the days I work, I'll either try to go to the gym before work or after, try to get in maybe a couple miles on the treadmill or a quick spin cycle or something like that. Or a lot of times, whenever it's nice out, after I get off, I like to run from the hospital to downtown Huntsville, run around Big Spring Park, and come back and get 4 to 7 miles, something like that. Then on my off days, I usually do 2 or 3 10-mile trail runs. I live about 10 minutes from Joe Wheeler State Park, and they have it's a nice, it's a out and back that turns into a loop, but it's all right along the river, right around 10 miles. So it's a beautiful run that I love to go do a couple times a week. And I have a spin cycle, cheap one that I bought off Amazon, but it gets the job done. So I'll hop on it sometimes after or before work if I'm not going to the gym, and do that for 30 minutes. I try to do a good bit of band and just body weight work in my spare time. Have time in between surgeries at work, go down to the locker room, bust out 50 squats or 50 push-ups or something like that, and head back up. At this point, just anything that I can do to keep my body active. I very rarely ever take an elevator. I always take the stairs to help build that uphill running power. Just little things like that I do on a daily basis.
It's all about the little things, dude. When you said that, that reminded me, I used to work in this office and I would go back to this back corner where nobody would really go. There was these lockers back there and I could kind of hide. I'd go back there and do push-ups and squats during my, just breaks. I'd go to the bathroom and then go back there and knock out 50 push-ups and then go back to my office. And it's like, yeah, just the little things, man. It all adds up. Well, really cool, man. I'm curious, have you ever paced anybody at an ultra, at like a big 100 or 200?
I have not yet. Actually, towards the end of this month, I'm planning on pacing a guy from around the Coleman area named Hayden Maples. He's running the Lake Martin 100. And at the 50-mile mark, he's able to have a pacer. So I think I'm going to hop on with him and, try to get him through the night and to the finish line the next day.
Cool. Well, that's it right there. That's going to be the final piece that's going to hook you in, and you're going to want to sign up for the longer distances after that, because, your buddy's probably going to look miserable and you're going to have to get him through some deep stuff, but yeah, you're still going to love it. It's that you're that type of person. So
yeah, man, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to being on the other side of the suffering and, being the one responsible for just cheering someone on, being there to help them out. That's one thing I learned very early on once I started racing was, these people that hike a mile, 2-3 miles into a trail, sit out there for hours at aid stations and everything else. Every time you come around, just being there for your needs. I've started volunteering a lot more in the last couple months just because I love the community. I love the atmosphere, and I'm looking forward to being that person and try to help him get across.
Good. Well, it sounds like you're doing everything right. As a new ultra runner, you're signed up for a handful of races. You're going to be pacing. You're going to be volunteering. So you are in it, man. And it sounds like you're just moving up from here. So I'm going to keep an eye on you. I can't wait to see what's in your future. And I think it's going to be fire, man. So real quick, man, just like before we move on too far from it, I want to go back to the weight loss thing for just a minute. Like, we kind of glazed over it and you made it sound like it was fairly easy. I'm guessing it wasn't easy. I mean, what were the struggles in there? I mean, was it just, I've never been overweight. My struggle was more like alcohol, probably. That was kind of my thing. And, but I'm just wondering like what the day-to-day struggles were, like, changing your diet, not eating your favorite foods, looking in the mirror, all those things. I mean, those are things I'm guessing are struggles, but I really don't know. So can you talk about that?
Yeah, man. So, I think overall the hardest thing was portion control. Like I said earlier, I had no idea what a portion was whenever I was younger. I just ate until I couldn't eat anymore. So trying to, because I've always, it wasn't really what I ate. I wasn't eating a bunch of junk growing up. I just ate a ton of other stuff. Okay. So, really just honing in, this is 600 calories. This is what we're going to have at this meal. You'll get however much later. I was never like a strict calorie counter, but, just kind of really looking at portion sizes. And that was probably the hardest thing because, you're used to eating a giant plate full of food. Then you finish what you in your mind's a little meal and you're like, well, I'm still hungry after this. But, you do it for a little while, then you kind of get the point where you're almost like, dang, I'm stuffed after this little bit. So I think that was one of the hardest things. And then just trying to find, workouts that kept me entertained.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'm picturing, so you weren't eating like a lot of junk food. You were just eating bigger portions of meals.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Then trying to square that down to like what's one portion. I mean, yeah, that's gotta be tough. So was that pretty much your, the bread and butter of you losing weight is just like portion control and then exercise as well?
Yeah, the portion control is the main thing. I drank a lot of soft drinks, so cutting out a lot of the soft drinks. Trying to find an alternative to Gatorade just because of the sugar count in it, and I don't like the no sugar Gatorades. To me, those are nasty. So trying to find healthy alternatives to that to keep my electrolytes and everything else up, because with the amount that I was working out, just drinking water wasn't enough.
Yeah.
But just trying to limit as much processed junk as I could. As the journey went on, I've gotten to now where I'm more of basically a whole foods diet, to where try to eat just good food, good vegetables, and everything. I don't really count calories or anything like that anymore. I don't follow any type of strict diet by any means. I still eat pizza and wings on the weekends if I want to and everything. But yeah, just trying to find that right portion for making sure your body's fueled, but not going overboard.
Yeah, totally. Is portion something you have to look at still to this day? Or, I mean, now that you're running a lot, you're also burning a lot more calories. I'm sure you can eat more. Is there still a struggle there, or is that struggle pretty much in the past?
That struggle is pretty much gone at this point. I'm to the point now to where I'm having trouble just eating enough to keep up.
Really?
Yeah, my weight will vary. It's nothing for me to go from right around 170 down to about 165 in a week, just because I'm burning so much more. With my job, I get a 30-minute lunch most days, but I'm there for 12 hours. So most time on those days, I'm eating one big meal a day at the end of the day. And if I run in between, I'm at a 2,000 calorie deficit to end the night. So I try to load up on times I can, just for the fact that I know I'm going to burn it off now. But it's like I said, I'm not eating a bunch of junk. I love fish. I love chicken. I love fruit and vegetables. So I'm able to put down a pretty good bit of food with that, and not really have to worry about the side effects where I would if I was just eating burgers or pizza or something like that all the time.
Yeah. I mean, do you ever sit and think about that for a minute and just think about where you are now and where you were, a handful of years ago, and just the difference in your life? Do you ever sit and just appreciate that for a second?
I don't think I really had until about 2 months or so ago. And I sat down and I really started looking at a picture of me from 2012.
Mm.
And it really just all hit me at one time, like how far I had came, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and in all other aspects of life. Yeah. And I ended up that night, I made a pretty long Instagram post that in my mind blew up. I had just all the guys, Hector, Justin True, Gandhi, Brandon, all those guys from out in California, they were sharing it. Joe Corcione, just all these guys jumped in and just started showing me all the love and support. And, whenever people like that start telling you, like, man, do you realize how far you've came? That's whenever it really hit me. So I'm in the very beginning stages of really realizing how far I've came in the last 10 or so years.
Nice. Well, I mean, you are the epitome of do big things, man. I mean, you lost the weight, you turned your life around, and you've got big things on the horizon. You've got goals on the list. You've got races coming up this year. I love it, man. It's beautiful. How do you sort of combat the anxiety and depression nowadays? I imagine it's kind of a different animal. I mean, when you're running a lot, that's an easy way to sort of get a handle on that because the endorphins are up. You're in a good mood most of the time. Is that primarily how you are dealing with this thing, or do you still have bouts of anxiety and depression that pop up? And what does that sort of look like for you?
Oh yeah, man, it still pops up. A lot of times it's on days like where I am at work for 12 hours, have a frustrating or stressful day, surgery, whatever it might be. And, for me now, it's really, I've kind of got a saying that I'll say over and over in my head, which is just take a step back, take a breath, look around, make your call. And to me, that's just kind of my de-escalation whenever I feel all those emotions coming on. If I feel myself, start to get overwhelmed, it's just, that take a step back, take a breath, analyze your situation and just think about it. Don't overreact. Because one of my big things was I would come up with 15,000 possibilities in my head that the chance of ever happening were slim to none.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's just stopping myself before I get to that point. Now, a lot of it is just being able to kind of take control over my own mind and my own thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. That's important. And yeah, that's not easy to do. You have to get to a certain point of intelligence in your life to even realize that. And it doesn't usually come easy. Do you practice anything else like meditation or yoga or cold ice baths or anything else crazy like that?
So I love the sauna, dry sauna specifically. I usually try to get in 3 to 5 times a week, just depending on how often I'm right around the gym. But usually I'll do 20 to 35-minute sessions in that, and I'll just put my headphones on and either whether it's music, a podcast, or just listening to nothing at all, just that silence. I'll take that time to really sit and think and meditate on, what I'm doing, what I want to do, what my short-term future looks like over the next couple hours, days. So that's really that's kind of my Zen place is the sauna. I like to just get back in a dark corner and just, kind of suffer in the heat for about 30 minutes.
That's suffering right there, man. You get inside your head deep in the sauna. I've spent plenty of time in saunas, and yeah, no, I love it, man. Well, cool, dude. What is something that no one knows about you? I mean, there's got to be something that we can surprise people with.
Oh, Lord. I don't know. That's a tough one. I guess just I guess just a random fact that not many people know. So my mother is on the board of directors for the Limestone County Children's Advocacy Center, it's a organization that comes and it takes children affected with whether it's violence, sexual abuse, whatever it might be. They give children in Limestone County a free place to go for counseling, to meet with district attorneys, to meet with psychotherapists, physical therapists, whatever it might be. They provide all those resources. And over the last year, I volunteered with them a good bit, and before long, hopefully looking to join them on their junior board of executives to help make my contribution back to them. And hopefully that's another organization that later on I can use my platform as a endurance runner to kind of help get some money for them, and just get the word out there for what they do, and even pass them what the National Children's Advocacy Center does.
Nice. Well, I like what you're doing. I like where your head's at. I like where you're going. I'm curious, have you ever heard of Bigger Than the Trail?
I have not.
You should check them out. It's a nonprofit that advocates for, mental health, and they give trail runners 3 free months of therapy if they need it. So that's another company you could get involved with. And it's one of the people who support this podcast. In fact, if anyone is interested, you can check out bttt.run/support to sign up for 3 free months of therapy. And it's a really cool program, and it's something you might be interested in, or you might be able to share on social media and just, help other people out, because I feel like you are one of those people that are going to be able to help other people. You're still at that point in your ultra running career where you're still kind of moving up in distance and you still don't know where this thing's going to go, but you've lost weight and you've come through some stuff, man. So I think you're going to be able to help people in one way or another, whether it's, I don't know, through this podcast or 10 years down the road, some other podcast or whatever, so stay on the path, man. Just keep doing what you're doing. I love it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. That's definitely, that's my whole goal through this whole thing. And, really since I've, really changed my life around is, I want to help as many people as possible. Whether, I'll never say that the way I went about things is the right or correct way to do it, because I don't think there is. I think that's a very personal thing that everybody's got to find their own path and their own way of doing it. But anyone that I can ever give any advice to, tell my story to show them that they're not alone, that other people have struggled and still struggle with these things. That's what it's all about. It goes far beyond, whatever I can personally do as a runner or anything like that. It's all about the amount of lives that can be affected and changed.
Yeah, I love it. And what's your Instagram handle?
It's Caleb_Sherrill.
Caleb_Sherrill. Sherrill.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, perfect. And so follow this guy for inspiration. If you want to lose weight, hit this guy up. I mean, it sounds like this is the guy to talk to. And he's still in it, man. He's still in this ultra marathon thing and moving up in the world. So Caleb, thanks for doing this, man. It was fun. It was cool to get to know you, and hopefully I'll get to see you on the trail at some point, man.
Yeah, man. Sounds awesome. I appreciate you having me on. This was my first podcast I've ever done. So I was a little out of my element and wasn't real sure how to go about it, but it's been great, man. I really appreciate it.
No, you did great, man. Don't worry about it. And yeah, man, I've done over 100 of these podcasts, and I was just on a podcast myself a couple weeks ago, and I was all nervous, like, oh man, what are they going to ask me? What am I going to say? So no, I totally get being on both ends of it, but yeah, you did great. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing what's in your future, man, because I know you're just moving up in this sport. So keep it up, man. If there's anything we can do for you as a company, get after us. But yeah, stay in touch and let's keep doing big things.
Yeah, man. Sounds great. I appreciate it.
You got it. Have a good one, buddy.
You too, man.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.